Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm very excited because I have some new Dior beauty products. They just re-released their bronzer and their highlighter and I picked them up. Now I was very curious about this re-release because I actually was not the biggest fan of Dior's past bronzer. I thought it was alright, but it was just like a matte bronzer. It was very sheer, it was buildable on the skin, but I just didn't love how it looked. So I was really excited because they did release these in both matte and glowy formulations, and I'm just someone that prefers at least a little bit of a sheen, not necessarily shimmer particles. I actually don't like shimmer particles at all, but I just like something with a tiny bit of a glow, even a demi-matte finish, like similar to the Hermes bronzer, which is my current holy grail. So I was really excited that they released more shades. However, I'm going to say that their shade range is very poor. It only goes up to an 05 Intense, and the 05 shade, in my opinion, I feel like I could use it. It doesn't look like it runs too deep, and I just don't think in like today's day and age that's good enough. But there are 10 shades available. However, the 10 shades don't go like 1 through 10. It actually starts at 02 light, and 02 comes in a matte and a glowy shade. So there's only 5 different shades, if that makes sense. And I decided to pick up the glowy tone in the shade 02 Light, just because I've been really into lighter tone bronzers. I feel like, for some reason, I just like them on my skin tone better. So this is the beautiful compact. I really actually like what they did with this redo. I think it looks really beautiful. I think it looks a little bit more sleek, a little bit more sophisticated. It seems like it's a little bit more well done. The last version felt a little bit cheaper, but it's not a huge difference, to be honest. And I don't know, I like this redo. However, I do not like the highlighter. It kind of, I don't know, it seems a little young, like a little childish, but it's okay. It does feel more luxe than it looks. And in the highlighter, I decided to pick up the shade 02 Gold Halo. So you know what, I'm gonna do, I don't have any makeup on currently, so I'm going to just do a little bit of a base with you guys on camera, and then we can talk about the bronzers and the highlighters. I'm going to use my Dior Forever Hydra Nude in the shade 2.5N. I really like this new foundation from Dior. I think it is really beautiful. However, I'm a little bit more bronzed than normal because, well, I was just in Hawaii and I did freshly self-tan. I'm going to take a little bit of my Chantecaille Sheer Bronze Face Tint, and I'm going to warm up this foundation ever so slightly. And then I'm going to take just one pump. You know, we're going to do one pump and a tiny bit of that Dior foundation. And I'm just going to mix everything together and go in with my Refer BO4, which is now called the LC03 brush. If you guys are wondering, it's literally the exact same brush. I don't think they changed anything except the color of the brush fibers, if I am not mistaken. So I'm just going to apply this all over the skin. Now, the one thing I dislike about this foundation is the strong fragrance. I just wish Dior would remove the fragrance in their foundations. I don't understand why we are still putting fragrance in our foundations in 2025. I feel like they're just going to reformulate. You know Dior, they're going to reformulate in a year or two, and then I feel like they probably will remove the fragrance. I just feel like it's safer to not have fragrance in your foundations because a lot of people are sensitive to it. A majority of my comments have people saying they will not be purchasing Dior foundations because of the fragrance. And it is a strong fragrance, so at least lessen it. But this foundation, regardless of the fragrance, is really beautiful on the skin. And I really like this because a lot of these light coverage foundations, they're formulated to be very, very glowy on the skin. And while I do think a glowy foundation is beautiful, I don't think it looks very skin-like because when you have a lot of glow to your skin, it kind of looks artificial, where this foundation is giving me light coverage, but it's a very natural finish. So it looks very skin-like. It's virtually undetectable. The most similar foundation I could compare it to is the Chantecaille Future Skin foundation, which is one of my holy grail foundations, the foundation that comes in a jar. The Chantecaille one is fragrance-free though, so it kind of wins on that front, but they are very, very similar in how they appear on the skin. It's such a pretty foundation. It's blurring, it's light coverage, it just slightly perfects the skin, but it doesn't look like straight up makeup. but I like that it doesn't look like makeup on your skin. Like if you are someone that likes very natural makeup and you like that imperceptible makeup where you can't detect makeup sitting on your skin, you're gonna really like this formula. It's something that I can go out in the daylight or in direct sunlight and you can't tell that I have makeup sitting on my skin, which I think is really remarkable because a lot of the times that's when makeup is the most noticeable. So I'm going to be utilizing this a lot, especially in the spring and summer when I want to look more put together, but I don't want it to look like I'm wearing makeup on my skin. This is just really, really beautiful. I highly recommend it. So today I'm just working from home. If you guys don't know, I have like a normal 9-to-5 job. I know some of you guys asked that. And I'm just going to take, so I obviously want my makeup to look very light and natural. I don't want it to be too over the top. I'm going to take this Victoria Beckham. This is their concealer pen. I have the shade LM1, but it is too deep for me. So I'm just going to take a little bit under my eyes. And then I'm also going to go in with the Chantecaille. This is the Camouflage Stylo. This is the shade 2, which is a tiny bit too light for me. So mixing them together is the perfect combo. Obviously, I don't recommend you purchase both of these to get this combo because that would be a very expensive combination. Honestly, I prefer the Chantecaille one and it is less expensive. The Victoria Beckham one is very, very pricey for what it is. So I would just recommend the Chantecaille one. And I'm going to blend that into the skin with the BK Beauty N16 brush. I really love this brush for concealer. It actually is a really nice multi-purpose brush. I feel like it works really well for concealer. And then I also like to use it for cream eyeshadows. It works really beautifully too. This is just, and I like it because some of the other brushes that are designed for concealer give you like super full coverage and they almost don't blend it into the skin as well. I feel like sometimes it sits on top of the skin, but this one really just melds into the skin. So I'm also going to get that excess on the outer corner here. And I'm going to kind of bring it into kind of like if you do a winged liner and bringing it up into that shape just to clean up that outer corner. Sometimes I can get a bit dark there and I like that lifted effect. I feel like it gives a nice youthful look. I'm just going to set that concealer really lightly with my Cle De Peau Refining Pressed Powder and the Rephr 19. Some of you guys ask if I use this under my eyes, and I actually do. It's the only pressed powder I will use under my eyes. And then I'm just going to take a little bit of that excess and apply it just on the center of my skin. Now we're moving on to the bronzer. So this is the Dior Forever Nude Bronze, and I picked up the shade 02 Light, like I stated. So this is the Gorgeous Compact. I really like this. I think it is beautiful. This does have a 12-month shelf life. You get 7 grams of product, and this was $70. I live in Canada, so it's obviously going to be a little bit more expensive than the US, unfortunately. And I'm going to be honest, you're not really going to be able to see that swatch because it is virtually the same color as my hand. It is like one shade deeper, but that is what I wanted. I wanted a bronzer that was really low contrast. I wanted something that was just 1 to 2 shades deeper than my skin tone, just because I think that looks the most natural. So right there is the Hermes bronzer, and right there is the Dior. So they actually are quite similar. Okay, those are very, very similar. I can't even really tell the difference, so that really excites me. This does also have a very, very light fragrance. It smells very pleasant. It's not like that perfumey fragrance that we get in the foundation. This almost smells like a little bit like a baby powder. Like it's very, very subtle. And it smells like a sweet baby powder. It's very pretty, actually. So I don't mind the scent in that, and I really like this little design that they have. They have the CD imprinted on this, and I just think that is just a nice touch in comparison to their last formulation. I also think this feels silkier. This formula feels a little bit more buttery, and it feels a little bit more powdery. I don't mean that in a bad way, because the last version, if you had tried it, it was very stiff in the pan. You needed a very dense brush to pick it up because it was very hard pressed. Where this feels like a buttery, silkier texture, it still feels incredibly, incredibly finely milled. It does claim to have hyaluronic acid. It's supposed to have some skincare properties. This says it's a long wear tanned effect powder bronzer, natural glow or matte finish infused with hyaluronic acid. So the Dior Forever Nude Bronze warms the complexion with a natural glow or matte tanned effect, streak-free finish. Composed of 95% natural origin ingredients, this summer-proof powder bronzer is your long-wearing, transfer-proof summer makeup ally. Dior Forever Nude Bronze contains the Tan Beautifier Complex, infused with hyaluronic acid and a vitamin C derivative for a summer tan that lasts. So you can either get a natural glow or a matte finish. And like I stated, this is O2 Light in the glowy finish. So interesting enough, this claims to be long wearing and transfer proof, but only in the natural glow finish. So I guess the matte version isn't transfer proof, but this version is long wearing and transfer proof. So I guess they're trying to make it like that long wearing, waterproof kind of thing. So we'll see if this is long wearing. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take my Refer 22 brush. This is just a brush that I would normally apply my bronzer with. I don't necessarily think you need a brush this dense because, like I stated, it's not like that last version that was very hard pressed. I feel like you could use something like a BK Beauty 104 brush that's a little fluffier because I don't necessarily think you need a really dense brush. You know what? Let's just try it with this brush because I'm curious if it will still pick up, especially because I picked up a lighter shade. So I like to just, that's probably more than I would normally pick up. I like to pick up a small amount and then tap off the excess on the back of my hand to ensure that I don't have too much pigment on my brush and it just looks, sometimes it can like streak or it just won't blend as easy. So I'm ensuring I get the best blendability. This is definitely lightly pigmented, not super lightly pigmented. Like I stated, it has more pigmentation than the last version. But this is just a lighter toned bronzer for me personally. But it is going on very beautifully, very seamlessly. I am picking up product with this brush. I think that's really nice. I really like the color of this. It's definitely a warmer toned bronzer. It's kind of like a, well, it's exactly like the Hermes bronzer. So it's definitely that warmer tone. If you don't like warm tone bronzers, I don't think you'll love this formulation. But I think it is really beautiful. So this formula is very buildable on the skin, and as it builds up, it's not looking heavy or cakey or too orange on the skin. I feel like it gives a very natural bronzed effect. It's just giving me that sun-kissed glow. I really like this. I think it is really beautiful, and I really like that that foundation is allowing my natural skin to peek through as well. Like I can still see all my freckles and everything. I just think that looks really, really beautiful. It's a very natural sun-kissed glow on me personally. I definitely could have picked up the deeper shade, which was 03 Soft. I think I definitely could have used that. It would have just given me a little bit more contrast. I don't think the 02 is bad. I think it just is giving me a very natural bronze look. So if you're someone that likes a more contrasting bronze look, you might want to pick up the shade 03 if you're similar in my skin tone. I'm about a Chanel B30. That's my typical foundation range. So I'm like a light to medium skin tone. And I think this is really, really pretty. I really like this. I feel like the formula is finely milled. It is buttery. It is smooth. It goes on seamlessly. I have no issues with it being patchy or anything like that. I think the shimmer in this, it's not like a normal glowy bronzer in that you can see shimmer particles, because again, I don't like when you can see shimmer particles. It's just a bit of a creamier formula, and there is just, it's more of a demi-matte, I want to say. It's not super glowy at all, where I can't detect any sort of sheen or shimmer particles, but it just feels very smooth and creamy on the skin. I'm going to look out because I did try this yesterday and I feel like it wore all day long, but I wasn't paying attention because this does claim it's transfer proof and long wearing. So I will definitely update you on that. But now we are going to talk about the beautiful highlighter, and the highlighter again comes in this silver packaging. It's interesting. So this is the Dior Forever Glow Luminizer. I chose the shade 02 Gold Halo, because when I was looking at swatches, the shade Nude Halo looked actually to be way more yellow gold warmer than the 02 Gold Halo. So Gold Halo, in my opinion, is actually more of a pinky champagne. It's not gold at all, but the shade 01 Nude Halo looks very yellow, warm gold. So I think they got these confused. And Dior, so this reformulated version, I liked the previous version, but I didn't love it, and I don't really know why. I feel like it kind of went bad really quickly, which is weird because it's a powder product, but mine started to smell weird after about like 3 months, so then I just stopped using it. I feel like the formula was very, very similar though. It's this very, very soft, subtle glow. It's not going to be one of those see from outer space highlighters. It's going to be a very, very soft, beautiful, subtle glow. I try to give some better swatches, but there you can just see how that reflects the light. It's going to give you that glossy, lit from within sort of glow. This is a baked gelée. This is made in Italy. So those baked gelée formulas are very unique in the sense that they're not a typical highlighter powder that are going to give you a lot of those glitter flecks. This is just going to give you that glow from within. There are no detectable shimmer particles in this. It's just a very smooth, finely milled, baked powder. And what I like about those baked gelée products is when you buff them onto the skin, as you buff them into the skin, they become one. They almost melt into your complexion like a cream product would. So I just love that about them. So I'm going to take this BK Beauty 201 brush and I'm going to dip into this highlighter. That's probably a little bit too much. And I'm going to apply that to, wow, that's actually more intense than I thought. So this is definitely, it's not intense, I shouldn't say that, but it's just, I put on a little more than I probably should have. See there, that's better. So I kind of like to start back on my cheekbone and then really work it into the skin. So I don't mean it's intense in that it's glittery. I just mean there is quite a glossy glow to it. But I do think that people who are maybe not that into highlighter would really like this formula because, again, these baked gelée formulations, they're a little bit harder to pick up on a brush. You need a bit of a denser brush to get that product onto the skin. But the benefit of these baked gelées is that they really, really melt into your complexion. So what I like to do is I'll take like a buffing brush from Sonia G and I like to really work that highlighter into the skin just so it's not sitting on top of the skin. It's really melted in, and this really makes it look like a cream highlighter when you buff that product into the skin. So on the site, Dior Forever reinvents its Luminous Glow Powder, available in 3 new finishes to reflect light from all angles. Halo for a crystal glow, Strobe for a duochrome shimmer, and Sequin for a sparkling radiance. This unique formula boasts a concentration of pearlescent micropigments with subtle shine in a clear gel base. It blends seamlessly with the skin and diffuses light in its purest intensity. So again, there's different finishes. It claims to be long wearing. There is shimmering pearlescent pigment in a gel technology with a barely there feel. It's infused with hyaluronic acid, and there are 7 shades. So I picked the Halo because I am someone that likes that really subtle sheen. But if you're someone that likes that duochrome look, it definitely won't look as skin-like on the skin. It's not going to look as natural if you pick up those duochromes, but it is a more just standout look if you're someone that wants to be noticed, if you're someone that likes that contrast on your skin, if you're someone that likes that statement look. I think you'll really like those duochromes. And the Sequin, again, I'm just not into a highlighter that has glitter particles. That's just not my style. But if you're someone that likes that really intense shimmer, I do like that they came out with different finishes because I feel like it will work for a lot of different people who have different tastes, because obviously not everyone has the same taste I do. I just prefer a natural makeup look, but there's so many other people that don't prefer that. So I really like that they came out with those different finishes. I think this shade is perfect. I'm someone that doesn't have a lot of like pinky champagne highlighters. Most of mine are gold, so I do like this highlighter. I think it's different enough. I feel like the technology they're going for is very similar to like this Gucci highlighter, where it's in that gel base. The Dior one is not as creamy as this Gucci one. This Gucci one almost feels like a putty formula. But I would say that they're very similar in their intensity level. They actually do look quite similar, except my Gucci highlighter is definitely more gold tone, where the Dior leans more pink. So they're named, I feel like they definitely got the names mixed up because this is definitely a more pink champagne highlighter. They're both really beautiful. I feel like the Dior one is actually even more subtle than the Gucci one though. So I prefer the Dior one. Like this was $70. Again, it's the same price as the bronzer. And I personally would spend that on the Dior one again because I like the way it sits on the skin. I feel like the Gucci one can emphasize texture a little bit, where this Dior one doesn't seem to emphasize texture as much. It just gives you that really beautiful glossy look. And for blush, I'm going to take this NARS blush. I know I've been using it a lot lately, but I'm kind of not sorry because I just really, really like how it looks on the skin. I'm going to go back with the BK Beauty 104 brush because I want a really light application. I kind of want this look to be all about the bronzer and the highlighter, but I just want a little bit of color on the cheeks. So I am just going to take a little bit of that. And for lips today, I'm going to take the Cle De Peau lipstick in the shade Triumphant Tawny. I love this lip it's a really beautiful nude lip. It's like the perfect combo of a peach, a pink, and a beige. It's like all those tones in one, so I feel like it will really suit this more neutral tone blush. And I'm gonna be honest, guys, since I'm working from home today, I don't really like to put on mascara on a daily basis because I just hate removing it at the end of the day. But I do have plans after work, so I'm just going to apply a little bit of my Kosas brow gel, and I'm going to run that through my lashes just to give a very, very subtle tint, but it's barely imperceptible. Again, this is what I like to do on like no makeup days because it adds a little bit of something to my lashes, but it's not a straight up mascara. I feel like that just looks ever so slightly better than no mascara. And I realized what the scent was while I was putting on that brow gel in my eyes. Or not in my eyes, I put it on my lashes. This smells like a sunscreen. It's like a coconutty sunscreen, but there is no SPF in this. I actually really dislike when companies add SPF to products, most often because they're adding chemical SPFs, and I just prefer not to use those. And so there's no SPF in this, but it does smell like a coconutty sunscreen. Wow, I actually really like that scent. I would prefer it to be unscented though, just so we're clear, but it's very, very light. It is nowhere near that perfumey fragrance that's in this foundation or even the Stick Foundation. And a lot of you guys asked, by the way, this makeup look is done. So that is the makeup look complete, and that is all the products in action. I'm going to go over my thoughts quickly. I really like this reformulation. I personally feel like this is way better than the previous bronzer. I like that it isn't as hard pressed. It's easier to blend. It's easier to apply. I think it looks better on the skin as well. On me personally, that Dior bronzer, the previous version, it was just too matte on my skin. I am someone that has dry skin, so I just need something with a bit of a glow. It just made my skin look too dry, and I don't think it is that suitable. Like, I would never have recommended that Dior bronzer for mature skin types. I do think if you have oilier skin or normal skin, it was a nice bronzer, but it just, with all these new reformulations coming out with this new technology, I just don't think that Dior bronzer really stood up to these new technologies that these companies are coming out with. So I really actually do prefer this new formulation. I recommend the glowy version just because I personally like a bronzer with a bit of glow, but just know it isn't super glowy. There is no sheen to this or no shimmer particles. It's very, very similar to the Hermes bronzer. And honestly, these shades are very, very similar as well. If you guys have the Hermes bronzer, you don't really need the Dior. The Dior is cheaper, so I like that. But I do prefer this formulation from the previous version. In fact, you guys have been asking about a declutter, and I do have all my makeup decluttered, but it is so overwhelming. I don't even know how I'll film it because I'm basically getting rid of 3/4 of my collection. But they're in my declutter pile, so I can't even compare them because they're deep down in that bag. But I am decluttering my old one because I just personally wasn't the biggest fan. I really, really like this new version. And I also like this new version of the highlighter. I think it is really beautiful. I don't really think it's that different from the previous version. It doesn't look that different to me, but I really like how subtle this is on the skin. It looks like it might even be less intense than the previous version. I just like how skin-like these Baked Gelée products are. It really reminds me of those Chanel limited edition highlighters that are top-notch, that are so beautiful and perfect, that Chanel discontinues because they're limited edition and collections. It really reminds me of that because all those are that Baked Gelée formula. They're all made in Italy, and I just really love how these perform on the skin. And I feel like $70 is not terrible. Like, we have it's very, very expensive, don't get me wrong, but we have the Hermes highlighters that have come out with those Baked Gelée formulas that are $140 Canadian. Like, that is absurd. So it is twice the price of this, and I feel like it's pretty similar formulation. I feel like the Hermes ones are even more intense though. This is definitely more subtle and more skin-like and more glossy, I want to say. where the Hermes ones have a little bit of micro glitters in them. So I really like this version because I think you can highlight the skin without it emphasizing texture. I think it just looks really, really beautiful. Also, I just quickly wanted to go over this Dior Forever Hydra Nude because some of you guys were asking how it compares to the Stick Foundation. Now, I do love the Stick Foundation. It is, maybe I should do a top foundation video because it definitely is in my top 10 foundations, maybe even my top 5. I really, really love the Stick Foundation. I think it is absolutely beautiful. However, I would not recommend the Stick Foundation if you have very oily skin. And I'm not sure if you have mature skin because it is so glowy. I'm not sure. So if you have mature skin and you've tried this, please let me know your thoughts on it. But I would recommend this for all skin types because I think it's I really like how they did this formulation because it's light coverage. I don't even think you could build it up to medium coverage. Light, maybe light medium coverage. And I really like that you can see your skin texture through it. But I really like that it's that light buildable coverage, but it's giving you a natural finish. It's not a dewy finish. It's not a glowy finish. So if you have oily skin, you can actually use one of these lighter coverage, almost like a tinted moisturizer product without it looking too glowy on your skin. I also like this because that means I can wear this in the summertime without it going greasy on my skin. This is something that I know is going to look beautiful in the summer because it's probably going to look a little bit more glowy on my skin then. And then I just feel like I can get use out of it all year round, which I really, really love. So I just feel like this is more universal, where the Dior foundation stick, it has a glowy finish to it. This is definitely not for my oilier skin types because I think it will look a little bit too greasy on the skin. This has like a very noticeably glowy finish to it, where this just has a skin-like finish. It's very velvet on the skin. This one I do prefer to set down with powder because of how glowy it is. But even though it's glowy, it maintains that finish all day long and it never looks greasy. And also it is very long wearing. Like it doesn't separate, it doesn't fade. It actually wears all day long, even though it is glowy. So I do really like both of these. I just feel like they're different foundations because this has way more coverage to it. So this is like my special occasion or my travel foundation, where this is a really good everyday basic foundation when I just want my skin to look like skin. When I want the makeup to be imperceptible on my skin. Do I think you must go out and buy these? Of course not. I do think the highlighters, it looks like they're coming to Sephora. So maybe wait till a savings event. Wait a few months until your favorite creators are they continuing to talk about these products, or are they just going to fall by the wayside? I feel like a lot of new products, people will claim, these are my absolute favorite new products. And it's easy to say about new products. However, are you going to continue to pull for them? Because I feel like when things are new and exciting, you want to reach for them and then you go back to your old favorites. So I'm going to be curious myself to see if I still pull for them. The highlighter, I probably won't reach for as much just because I'm not a highlighter girl. I'm someone that prefers like the Chanel Balm Essential, that cream highlighter on an everyday basis. So I don't know if I'm going to reach for this all the time, but I think it's really beautiful and really pretty, and I'm definitely going to reach for it more than the Gucci highlighter, and probably like the Hermes highlighter just because that one's a little bit more metallic. I really like how subtle this is. I feel like if you prefer a powder highlighter, this would be a good one to wear on an everyday basis because it is very subtle. And the bronzer, I do think I'm going to reach for quite often because I like it as an alternative to my Hermes. I'm so glad I picked up this shade. The shade works beautifully for me. It's not too deep. It's not too cool toned. I don't like a bronzer that's too pink on my skin. I don't think it's that flattering on my skin tone. So I really like the warm tone of this. I think it is beautiful. And yeah, but as always, I don't feel like these are absolutely essentials that you must have in your collection. So don't let that hype that people build these up make you feel like you have to purchase if you're just not in the market to purchase. But I do think they are worth the money, in my opinion. So those are just my thoughts on the new Dior collection. I would love to hear from you. Are you picking up any of these new products? What are your thoughts on these new releases if you have got your hands on them? I always love to hear from you. If you have different opinions, that is totally fine. We can discuss in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Like this video if you like it. And I'll see you in my next video.